Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of India International. India, China and Russia is a very interesting triangular relationship. So when we talk about it as a triangular relationship, what does it mean? It actually means that if we are looking at India-Russia relationship, the way it takes shape affects the China-Russia relationship as well as India-China relationship. And this has been happening ever since the 1950s onwards. Early 1960s through the 1991, that is the disintegration of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, foundation of the Soviet-India friendship was primarily the fact that they had bad relations, both of them had bad relations with China. This situation started changing sometime in the middle of the 1990s. Yevgeny Primakov, who was regarded as the architect of new Russian foreign policy, which is primarily the foreign policy of Russia since the 21st century. Primakov, who was the foreign minister of Russia and then also the prime minister for some time, he came out with a concept of multilateralism, which actually meant that US hegemony of world politics needs to be challenged, and it can be challenged, and the emerging powers, the new emerging powers, thus can come together to challenge the US hegemony. From this emerged Primakov's idea of Russia, China, India strategic triangle. He also talked about bringing the Eurasian thrust back into Russian policy. What he meant thereby was that under Boris Yeltsin, the first president of post-Soviet Russia, Russia had leaned towards US and West a bit too much, and it was primarily a Eurasian power. So getting that Eurasian ethos back in Russian foreign policy and also the domestic policy was important, and thus emphasis on improving relations with countries like China, which they were not very good at that time, and continuing with a good relationship with India, which had been very good relations since the 1970s onwards. When the idea of strategic triangle of China, Russia and India came into existence, India-China relations were particularly bad, and thus it could not immediately take off. Russia gave priority to improving its relations with China, which it did by signing a treaty in the year 2001. It also encouraged China and India to improve their relations. For a number of other reasons as well, both these countries decided to move towards a rapprochement. And in the year 2005, China and India also signed a treaty of friendship. But at the same time, and when we look at this strategic triangle or just a triangle of Russia, China, India, we cannot forget the fourth power, and that is the United States, which also has a bearing upon not only the bilateral relations among the three, but also the usual relations in the region in the larger sense. So, in the same year when India signed the friendship treaty with China, that is in 2005, it also made the framework agreement for nuclear cooperation with the United States in 2005. Now, ever since that framework agreement for nuclear deal was signed, India-US relations have improved. It's like a turnaround, a complete turnaround, and the relations today are better than ever before, one can say. However, since then, for the past about a decade or so, India has actually balanced its relations with US on the one hand and China on the other. So it agreed sort of to take into stride the US sanctions on Iran, even if those sanctions jeopardize India's interests in Iran, particularly the transport project that Indians were constructing a port in Chabahar, they are still constructing, and the subsequent transport project that ran from Chabahar via Azerbaijan right into Russia. On the other hand, they also tried to balance the Chinese side. China emerged in these years as one of the largest trading partner of India. But on the other hand, while India actually became involved in the whole idea of Indo-Pacific, it tried to take care that Indo-Pacific is not projected as an anti-China grouping. And it also therefore was very cautious about the grouping called the Quad, or the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. All this has changed since last year, since May 2020 in particular, because of the Chinese aggressionism in eastern Ladakh, because of the fact that China tried to change the status quo along the line of actual control. Two developments that took place in the last week need to be seen in this entire context. One of them is the visit by Foreign Secretary of India, Harshvardhan Shringla, to Moscow. And the second one, of course, is the disengagement in Pangong Lake. So first about Harshvardhan Shringla's visit to Moscow on 17th and 18th February 2021. Ministry of External Affairs of India publicized this visit as the first visit by Foreign Secretary in the year 2021. They also emphasized that this visit has come despite the COVID pandemic, and that actually indicates the importance India attaches to a friend like Russia. Shringla had talks with several people, including his counterpart in Russia, the Russian foreign minister, and so on. And there are at least three major takeaways from this visit. First of all, underlying the fact that Russia continues to be the major supplier of weapons to India, despite various efforts by India to diversify the sources of weapons, India made an agreement to buy S-400 missiles from Russia. So that's the first takeaway. Secondly, India and Russia talked about the situation in the Indo-Pacific. It is very interesting to see the two countries talk Indo-Pacific, because while Russia actually is a Pacific power, it has an objection to the whole idea of Indo-Pacific. And the third takeaway is talks on the proposed Chennai-Vladivostok Maritime Corridor, or CVMC as it is known. This corridor is important for the trade between Russia and India, because if the corridor gets activated, that is likely to cut the distance between the two countries by a good 3,100 kilometers, which is quite a bit. The single most important event of last week is the disengagement by the Indian and the Chinese armies on the north as well as the south bank of the Pangong Lake, which began in fact on 10th of February. It was announced by China on the 10th of February, and the Indian Defence Minister made a statement to that effect in the Parliament of India on 11th of February. This process is complete now. It was a 4-stage process, very meticulously planned and verified from both the sides. Now the process is complete. The process, it was announced that by Thursday the process and the verification of it actually got completed. And on Saturday, 20th of February, in the morning, the two countries have actually began the talks for next round of disengagement along the LAC on the other flashpoints on the LAC, as it was decided that within 48 hours of disengagement from Pangong, talks for the other flashpoints would actually resume. Now, as a part of disengagement, what have both the countries done? So if you want to put it in a nutshell, one can say that on the north bank of the Pangong Lake, India has come to its original post, which is known as the Dansing Tapa post, named after the legendary Major Dansing Tapa. This is slightly to the west of Finger 3, and China has gone to the east of Finger 8, which is known as the Sirijap post. Agreement was that both countries will withdraw to the permanent post recognized before April 2020. That is what they call the resuming the status quo ante April 2020. And thus both countries have withdrawn to Dansing Tapa and Sireja posts respectively. What has happened is they have also agreed upon not patrolling the area between finger 4 and finger 8. This has become a little controversial. I'll talk about it in a little while. On the south bank of the Pangong Lake, India has vacated the heights it had gained in August 2020. General Y.K. Joshi, Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, who commands the northern command of the Indian Army, has said in an interview that for the first time, as far as the clashes on the LAC are concerned and engagement, disengagement is concerned, for the first time, the two countries have reached a written agreement. This written agreement, when it was being made, it was not only done at the level of the force commanders, but the representatives of the foreign office of both the countries were a part of the delegation which negotiated the agreement. In addition to that, this agreement, which was made at the force commandant level, was also approved and ratified by the higher command of the countries in both China as well as India, and thus it is a foolproof kind of agreement for disengagement at that particular point, that is the Pangong Lake. However, this agreement also has been criticized by many people on different grounds, and let us just very quickly check the criticism that has been leveled against this particular agreement. So first of all, there is an argument that we have given away the territory to China, and that Chinese had come into the Indian territory and we have given away the territory. Let us understand the very important fact as far as East Ladakh or Aksai Chin area is concerned. Officially India still argues that Johnson-Ardagh line is the official boundary between India and China, which means that entire Aksai Chin area is claimed by India as the part of India, and we know that it is in the actual occupation of China. Now this area, that is Aksai Chin, entire Aksai Chin, that is entire area to the east of Karakoram ranges, is occupied by China from 1957 onwards roughly, or at least India knows about the occupation from 1957 onwards, which means that Chinese have come into the Indian territory and they have been occupying the Indian territory for more than 6 decades now. It's not a new thing. Secondly, the criticism against the agreement was that India has given away the right to patrol between finger 4 and finger 8. Now it's a reality that India was patrolling between finger 4 and finger 8, because the Indian perception of the line of actual control is that it goes from east of finger 8. Chinese, however, claim it to be at finger 4, and therefore just as the Indians carried out patrolling between finger 4 and 8, Chinese also carried out patrolling between finger 8 and 4, because they claim that area as well. And under the new agreement, when India has given away the right to patrol, China also has given away the right to patrol. So both the countries have agreed that no one will patrol between finger 4 and finger 8. So it's not a unilateral giveaway, but it's actually an agreement made by both the countries. And a third thing, as far as the criticism is concerned, the third point the people are making is that India had gained some strategic height to the south bank of Pangong and it has given it away. Again, if I can draw from the argument made by Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, he argues that occupying the Blacktop or Rejingla, these passes, it was actually a tactical move, and a tactical move was to ensure that talks can happen, and whenever disengagement happens, first India can talk from the position of strength and not from the position of weakness. And second objective of occupying those heights was that China agrees to withdraw from where they were in April 2020. So, restoring status quo ante. Now, General Joshi argues that since India has achieved this tactical objective, we have given up the positions, and in any case, holding those positions at that height across the year is in fact going to be extremely difficult, not only for India but also for China. So, this is the way you can look at the agreement that has been signed, and this is how one can look at the various points of criticism of the agreement as well. After all, one has to look at this as a deal between the two countries, and the deal is actually give and take. If you want to get something, you have to give something in return, you have to bargain for it. And this is exactly what the Indian troop commanders on ground have done. They have agreed to give something in order to get something. It's actually, one can say, a kind of tactical agreement, a kind of, a tactical give and take, a tactical deal. In fact, countries also make strategic deals and strategic agreements which work for a longer period of time. Indeed, New Delhi also had done such kind of a deal. And let me get back Soviet Union and Russia once again in this discussion. During the Cold War, Soviet Union was the only country which supported Indian position on Kashmir. And that is the reason why New Delhi has never ever raised any question about what happens internally in the Soviet Union or after 1991 Russia. But what is more important is, because of the Soviet diplomatic support, we have agreed, tacitly of course, we have, that is New Delhi has never in fact officially criticized Soviet Union's aggressions elsewhere in the world. And there are plenty of such examples. India did not criticize Crimea in 2012. It did not criticize Soviet aggression in Afghanistan in 1978. It did not criticize the Soviet actions during the Prague Spring Revolution in Czechoslovakia, that Soviet Red Army went into Czechoslovakia, arrested the revolutionary leaders and executed them. India never criticized that in the year 1968, and India also did not criticize the Hungarian Revolution in 1956, when again Soviet Union entered Hungary, crushed the revolution and executed Imre Nagy, the leader of the revolution. So, it is a strategic agreement, kind of a strategic deal that we had made, that for the support that we got on Kashmir, we refrained from criticizing Soviet Union on certain other issues. And in the name of national interest, that is very often done by various countries, not just India. This particular disengagement in Pangong Lake can be seen in a wider perspective. First of all, talks between the foreign and defense ministers of India with their counterparts in China had begun in September 2020, when both Jaishankar and Rajnath Singh met their respective counterparts at the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Foreign Ministers and Defense Ministers meeting. These two meetings of the foreign and defense ministers were also held after occupying the heights in southern Pangong Lake, and that again was making sure that you talk with those people from a position of strength. In episode number 5 of India International, I had discussed this, and I had said at that time that diplomacy as well as resolve on the ground together is the way forward. Looking back, we can say that India actually has achieved both. It did show a lot of resolve on the ground by continuing to occupy the heights on the south bank of Pangong Lake even through the winter, and it has sustained 9 rounds of talks in order to get what it wanted, as a deal was made finally only at the end of the 9th round of talk. It has also carried out some kind of aggressive diplomacy. So, after September 2020, what has India done? Looking back once again, we can see that it has taken the Quad forward, and this This time, it has taken the Quad in a little more bold way. The message that it is an anti-China grouping was not being hidden. Secondly, relations with Australia have been improved in last 1 year or so, and now Australia is among one of the very friendly countries of India. Thirdly, one can see the Malabar 2020 exercise. We have again spoken about the Malabar 2020 in episode 8 of India International. For the first time in Malabar exercise, all 4 Quad countries participated, and that actually was a kind of a message sent to China. Fourth, on 18th of February, just 2-3 days back, when the foreign ministers meeting of the Quad countries was held virtually, the Indian foreign minister used the word Quad for the first time. Until now, India has been using only a very different kind of expression by calling it meeting of 4 countries. But for the first time, it actually used the word Quad, signifying a change in Indian position. And it also used the term territorial integrity. And the use of the term territorial integrity is significant because it has a reference to China. And what's important to understand is among the 4 Quad countries, the only country which has land borders with China and therefore any significance for territorial integrity is India. And thus, there is diplomacy. So on both the counts, diplomacy and resolve on the ground, India has held, and thus it has been able to achieve those two. It has been able to achieve the deal as far as disengagement on Pangong Lake is concerned. We can look at Shringla's visit, Foreign Secretary's visit to Moscow also as a part of this wider diplomacy. India has been speaking to Russia when Russia-China relations are good, but India-China relations are particularly bad. And therefore, we can look at 2 important things as far as Harshvardhan Shringla's visit to Moscow is concerned. First of all, there is an acknowledgement that Russia is a part of Indo-Pacific. India has discussed situation in the Indo-Pacific region in Russia, with Russia. You see, when Indo-Pacific is viewed primarily as anti-China idea, speaking about Indo-Pacific with Russia has a lot of significance. And a second important fact as far as this visit is concerned is the talks on the CVMC or the Chennai-Vladivostok Maritime Trade Corridor. This corridor actually runs through the South China Sea as well as the East China Sea. And it is a part of the Indo-Pacific, the wider Indo-Pacific region. By taking up the Chennai-Vladivostok corridor and Indo-Pacific together, India has underlined the mutual benefits of the maritime trade corridor for both the countries, with an implicit concern over Chinese role in South China Sea and East China Sea, which is duly conveyed to Russia. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments in the comment box below.
Hello everyone. HW News English is 2 years old now. When we started this venture, we promised ourselves one thing, that news should remain free, because right to know is the right of every Indian. But to keep news free for everyone, we need support from some of you. And thus we have rolled out membership on our YouTube channel HW News English. But mind you, the membership is completely voluntary. The programs that we were doing earlier, that we are doing now, will continue to remain free.
First level is a basic level. Here, you can be our supporter by paying Rs 199 per month. This membership gives you certain perks and benefits. The perks include unique badges in front of your name, a live show from Mr. Sujit Nair and from Mr. Akhilesh Bhargava per month for our members. You can also vote in some exclusive members-only polls. Now the second level is Super Supporter. Here you can be our Super Supporter by paying Rs 3,999 per month. This membership will include every perk that comes with basic level. Additionally, our super supporters can be a part of a WhatsApp group where we can have discussions and suggestions on various topics. The second perk includes a gift pack with our merchandise. And the third perk is a Google Meet with Mr. Sujit Nair, where you can join the meet and ask your questions to Mr. Nair face to face. Lastly, if you like, we would give a shout out to our super supporters in our programs.
So, hope to see you soon with our badges.